Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. We have been working on this super cool Bally 8-ball champ pinball machine that we picked up. And we did a video where we worked through the playfield, cleaned it up, and kind of did like a time-lapse thing with some music and stuff. Hope you enjoyed that if you saw it. If you didn't, go back and check it out. It's very chill and relaxing. It was fun. And we've got the thing kind of running. But it hasn't been serviced in many years, and it needs a lot of adjustments and things worked on and all of that. So we're going to do some of that in this video. Now this is a Bally 6803 game, which is a little different than the Ballys that we usually do. We usually do the Bally -17 and -35 games. So if you don't know what that is, the MPU in the back box sits right here in most Ballys. And except this one, I think. I think it's different on this one. The MPU, their part number was AS something -17 for like the original 8-ball, for instance. And then they upgraded it to -35, which the only difference was that it used bigger EPROMs or PROMs. So all of the classic Bally games, the early ones, were all on those two boards, and they were interchangeable, and all of the parts were interchangeable. So we've done probably, I don't know, 60 or 70 of those. I don't know how many videos we made of them, but we've probably done 60 or 70 of those games. So there's Strikes and Spares, Matahari, 8-ball, all of the early ones. Dolly Parton, the $6 Million Man, Knight Rider, on and on it goes. Tons and tons of them. I'm forgetting like 50 of them. Harlem Globetrotters, Lost World, Xenon, tons of them. Okay. Well, eventually Bally updated their board system to make it a little more complex, where it could handle a little bit different stuff, a little bit more modern technology, but it was still in the very early 80s. And this was what resulted. So this is the Bally 6803 system, which is kind of quirky, a little different than the earlier ones. They made the same mistake where they installed a battery on the board. So we got to deal with that. And it has this weird little thing that it does. If the battery dies, basically the RAM on the board that stores the information for the settings gets corrupted, which can be just overwritten. It's no big deal, but every time you boot it up, it boots up with different information in all of the setting slots. So one of the things that it has done is it has turned off the squawk and talk soundboard, and it thinks that it has a cheap squeak soundboard in it. I think it's called a cheap squeak. So that's why you're hearing that cheap squeak. That's the squawk and talk making the wrong sound, basically, because the 8-ball thinks that that's what's in it. So we need to replace the battery and change all those settings and all of that. But before we take the main MPU out, I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is work on the lamps, actually, because I want to get an idea if most of them are working, or if while we have the MPU out, we should be looking at lamp stuff. Because the deal is, on the 6803, the MPU, which you'll see here in a minute, controls all the solenoids, all the lamps, and everything from one big, huge board. But it's a really cool design, which we'll check out here in a minute. But the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put it in test mode and check out all of the lamps, and then we'll go through and replace some of them. We've also got this flipper here that's driving me crazy. This one flipper, look at this one. You see it? You see what's going on, right? It's a little bit too high, but it gets stuck and stuff too, so we need to take a look at that. But let me get it in test mode, and we'll start messing with the light bulbs, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got it in test mode, and I'm writing down the ones that whenever I replace the bulb, it doesn't fix it. So far it's the tilt bulb and the match bulb. Check out this little art that one of our viewers made for us. They just sent us a whole box of these to fill us back up. So a couple years ago they sent us these, and then a few days ago we got another box. It's all anonymous too. It's very mysterious. I think it might be George that's sending them. It's probably George. So this is me inside the pinball machine working on stuff. Look, I got my screwdriver, and look, see the electricity? The power's still on. Right? There's my meter. There's a rubber ring laying down there, some light bulbs, a little sprocket. There's a mouse I found in there. It's pretty cool. All right, so I'm making a list. So I've got the tilt and the match. Bulbs do not work. Now, these sockets are not great in these machines. They went kind of cheapo on the socket. Well, let me change that. They did not go cheap on the sockets. They're crap sockets. But I'll bet they weren't cheap. So it's this kind of little, they don't look cheap to me. I mean, they look expensive actually. But they're crap sockets. So what happens is you go to put them in and they push back out of this cheap MDF here, or whatever this is. I guess that's particle board. The staples that hold the sockets in place will push out. The ones that are on the general illumination lamps do better than these. You see, this is actually a slightly different one because they've got, since it's a switched light, it has to have this diode on it for the light matrix. You can see the staple there, how they stapled it to the board. So they're not great. So it looks like the white ones are for the general illumination and the green ones are the switched illumination. Okay, so two of them are not working. It could be the socket, but I messed with it, and it didn't seem to make any difference. So I'm going to pop up the playfield and slowly replace these. Now it's kind of better to do them with the lights out. I mean, with the power off, because it's easy to short something to one of those sockets. You're bending it out of the way and putting a new bulb in, and it might touch the solenoid or something and cause you all kinds of problems. So you're better off doing it with the lights out. There's also a few that wig-wag, kind of. If you look, see, they're all coming on. Let's see here. And that one is doing the opposite. It comes on when the other ones are off. And then down here, you got a similar thing going on. On these 6803 boards, they had some way of doing the 2 cycles of the lamps where they used like the AC nature of the voltage to use each SCR for 2 lamps back and forth or something like that. So I think that's what they're doing, but we'll see. We're going to have to look at the schematics here in a little bit to figure out what our problem is. But I'm going to prop it up and start replacing bulbs, and we'll see which ones just will not cooperate. All right, folks, so I went through, took about 4 hours to change all of the light bulbs. Some of them are under the drop targets. You have to take the drop targets out to change them. But I replaced all the bulbs, and I have a list of all the ones that are bad. So one of the ones, for instance, is the bonus number 13. So bonus 13 in the schematics here. It's telling me that that's connector J13 pin 2 and that is Q35. That's the transistor, the SCR on the main board that runs it. The signal comes out through there, turns on bonus 13, which is phase A. Okay, so there's a phase A and a phase B. That's what I was talking about. It has something to do with the way they made it work with AC voltage, so that when it goes above ground, above 0, one phase works. When it goes below 0, the other phase works. Pretty brilliant. So they can run 2 lights off each SCR and control them by timing it to when the ripple of the AC is going. Ain't that crazy? So I'm going through, and it does seem that most of these that are messed up, they are doubled up. So the tilt is Q42, and then if you go down here, now you probably can't read my handwriting. One of these spinner ones, it says 100 or lit value, but I wrote the wrong thing. That's 5,000 points. Is the B phase of Q42. So I'm going through and matching them all up. Most of them, sure enough, the light that is not working, its sister light is also not working. So it could be a bad connection on the MPU, but it's probably the SCR has actually went bad over the years at some point. So we're going to pull out the board and look at all of that. But first I'm going to show you the section of the schematics, if I can find it, that does the lamps, just so we can see if it shows how that phase thing works. All right, so we're going to see if we can figure out how they set this up. So here is where it starts. Coming off the transformer, there's a 20-volt AC center tapped line, 2 of them actually. So here is the actual center tap, and then they have each side of the 20-volt center tap AC running through a fuse. So it's one side of the transformer, the other side of the transformer, and here is the ground or whatever, you know, the center tap. Okay, and it runs and runs. Now the center tapped part is just connected to ground. All right, and so it's for the feature lights, and they call it 0A and 0B. Okay, so let's see if I can get it to go down. Yeah, we got it to go down. So when it runs to the other side of the picture, or the thing, test points 6 and 7 are 11 volts, which is basically the 20. It's running a little high, you know, so that's each side of it. So one side runs here, and the other side runs here. So it's the 0A and the 0B. But if you look, the 0B also runs over here to what they're calling the zero crossing controller. Oh no, controller is what they're calling the connector to the MPU. So they're calling that pin zero crossing. So J315 is the zero crossing signal. So let's see if we can find that. So also on the power supply, the A comes up to another connector. They're calling that 0A, zero crossing signal. So the phase A and phase B both go to the MPU. All right, so I don't completely understand how this works, but phase A, when it comes on the board, it's rectified. So that, yeah, okay. And then it's ran through a couple things. And then it's gated with this P21 signal and creates a signal called P20. Okay, so that's phase A becomes P20. And phase B is rectified. Goes through a few things. And then runs over and becomes one of the control lines, CB1, on one of the PIAs, a 6821. Okay, so the output of that 6821 is the PA0 bus, they're calling it, and the PB0 bus. Okay, so some of the PA0 signals show up over here on a 4514, which is switching the 2N5060s on the board and grounding those lines. So it's grounding the actual lamp, and the phase 1 and the phase 2 are going to the separate lamps. So phase 1 is going to one of the lamps, and phase 2, or phase A is going to one of the lamps, and phase B is going to the other lamp. And so this, they're calling it lamp strobe 1. Basically this is timing it just perfect, where it knows which one to, at what point to ground it to turn on either that light or that light. But keep in mind, both of the lights can be on at the same time, and the whole thing's just brilliant the way they did it, because they can, since it switches so fast, your eye can't tell that the lamp is dimming. Plus, it's 12 volts, and these are 5-volt lamps. So the whole thing's just crazy. I don't know who thought it up, but so let me show you how the actual lamps are wired. Oh, another thing I noticed, A06 controls this chip with several connections, and then there are 2 separate ones. A05 is controlling this one, and A07 is controlling this one, but they all get 0, 1, 2, and 3. Wonder what happened to 4. So when they wired the playfield, they sent one phase to half of the lights and then the other phase to the other half of the lights. And then they've got it set up so that two lights have a different phase, but both lights go back to the same SCR so that they can control twice as many lamps with the same board by just playing with the AC voltage. Brilliant! All right, so here it is. Bally 6803 MPU. All of these games are pretty cool, I think. I mean, you know me, I like everything. But this was the successor to their earlier stuff. So here's the lamps that we're talking about. Basically, they kind of combined everything that was on their earlier boards and changed a few things. So you have your, I don't know what area does the switches actually. This is the switches connect here. On the earlier boards, they had two PIA chips, which is what we're still doing. Okay, here's your MPU and ROM and RAM, I guess. Running everything off one ROM chip. Okay, so it's a 6803, which I don't know anything about. 6821 PIA and 6821 PIA. The original one was a 6800 and then two 6821s. And then they've got a fairly, a larger at least, EEPROM. That's probably a 256 or something. 2016 RAM, very common. And then this 74 LS 154 is actually what they used to do the solenoids on the solenoid board originally. And here we are. This is basically the bottom of the solenoid board on the earlier models. So this is this chip and these three chips. Are those 30? Yeah. CA3081. That's the exact chips on the solenoid board. I got to show you this. Let me go find one. I got to show you what I'm talking about because this is awesome the way they did it. All right, so we'll do show and tell time. So this is the solenoid driver in their first solid state system. So the first one was called the Dash 17, and then they kind of upgraded the MPU to the Dash 35. So it's AS 2518, 17, and then 35. Okay? And so this is their original MPU. So it had satellite boards, and we've done tons of videos on that original system. And we always work on the solenoid driver board, which is this. So on the original Bally, they had a little tiny power supply rectifier board right by the transformer. And then it sent voltages up here, and this part of the solenoid driver board did other things. So this part makes the 5 volts to run all the chips, and this part made the voltages for the displays. So what they've done is they moved this part and this part to the power supply board. So now the game has a much larger power supply board because this and this is there. And then they just send the voltages wherever they need to go. But at the bottom of the solenoid driver board, there was a flipper relay. So basically, unless the game is being played, this relay's off so the flippers don't work. Whenever the game comes on, it turns one of these transistors on, which turns the flipper relay on and makes it where the flippers work during the game. Okay, so here we have the exact same thing. So we've got the flipper relay, and then all of the solenoid drivers, and then here's where they were on the original one. And then on the original one, there are 3 3081 chips to sync the drivers, and a 74 154. So here we have the 74 154 and the 3 chips that sync the drivers. So basically this little part, one edge of the board, is their solenoid board. They've kept the exact same design. They just put it on the same board as the MPU. So the original MPU had a 6800 up here and then two 6821s. One of the 6821s handles the displays. One of the 6821s handles the solenoids, and the lights, and then both of them handle the switches. It's just how they kind of did it. So here we have the same thing, except they're using a 6803, which I suppose is just an updated 6800 probably. And then the two 6821s. I'll bet even some of the support chips are exactly the same. Okay, and then like I said, I wonder what that EEPROM is. Let's see let's see how big the EEPROM is that's in there. It is a 27128. I thought it was a 256. Nope, 128. But there's room for two of them. And there may have been room for bigger chips too. And then they've got a 2016 RAM chip. This is a 6116, which is, yeah, I might be wrong, but I think it's the same chip. And so then down here, so I wonder how they did this. So the way they did the switches on this was one of them handled basically the strobe, and one of them handled the returns. And they ran through capacitors and resistors as they left the board for the strobes and the returns. And then they had on-board dip switches that had all these diodes here that were also attached to it. So on this one, they've gotten rid of the dip switches because they're saving everything in the CMOS memory, or whatever you call it. But yeah, we've got a capacitor and a resistor on all of this says cabinet switches, playfield switches. This says display, and I don't know what that would be. So it's basically, this is the MPU. And then we're down here to our lamp board. So the original lamp board and the original setup, there's 2 or 3 different designs, but they're all interchangeable. So they have 4 of these little driver chips. These have the Motorola number on them, which Motorola would make chips with code numbers on it, basically so that other people wouldn't know what they were. Motorola did that for people. So the Motorola part numbers are kind of, nobody else has the same part numbers. But if you see here, they have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48, 51, 54, 57, 60. They have 60 SCRs, and we're able to control 60 different lamps, although some of these SCRs, they would just hook 2 lamps up to it. So you would have more lamps. You might have a light at the bottom of the playfield that says same player shoots again, and then there might be one in the back box that also says same player shoots again, and they would use one of those SCRs to turn both of them on at the same time. But because this one's doing that thing with the AC, they can put these in and run 2 lamps independently of each other. Have this one on and this one always off, or vice versa. So they're doing that with 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45 SCRs. So they were able to get rid of that whole board and have less SCRs run 90 lamps instead of the original 60. Pretty sweet! And it looks like they have 3 chips running them, which is perfect, right? Each one's running 15, so it's 45. And on the other one, they had 4 chips running 60 of them. So it was a way to cut costs, but it also expanded how many lamps they could have. That's pretty awesome. But, you know, having everything on one board is a little bit of a drawback, because if you have something happen to this board, the board's more expensive, and, you know, it's kind of better if they're satellite boards, I would think, but then you have connector problems, so I don't know. Whatever, this is what they chose to do. So the thing is pretty cool. Now, they kept the battery idea. I've talked about this before. Everybody says, oh, I can't believe they did that with the battery. Oh, why would they do that? Well, you're supposed to change it every once in a while. It's not really their problem. If you've got a remote control at your house for the television, and you never change the batteries, after 30 years, yes, the batteries are going to rot and screw up your remote control. That's not a bad design. That's a abuse. You know, you didn't change the freaking battery. So if nobody changes this battery, yeah, it'll leak all over the board. But that's not a design problem, I don't think. That's just my opinion. And this is the original battery, by the way. The 24th week of 1984, and it hasn't leaked yet. Wow. So yeah, we'll be taking that out pronto. Okay, so we're doing lamps right now. That's why this thing has so many connectors on it. I hate taking it in and out of there 100 times, right? So I'd like to do it once or twice. Get this show on the road. Boy, they're going to ban me again. Okay, so I got to go through and I'm going to check all of these Qs. Q42, Q55. Some of them just the socket looked like it was screwed up. Q43, Q60, Q28, Q35. All right. So I'm going to go through and test those and see if they're all right. Now, a bunch of them to me look like, oh no, they haven't. I was going to say a bunch of them look like they've been replaced, but they have not. Look, they were silk screened like that. So for whatever reason, they used the bigger ones on some and the smaller ones on others. Now, why would they do that? It's because these crazy SOBs. Okay, so here's what they're doing. Now think about this. This is nuts. This is just nuts. They're getting real wacky, people. They're just getting crazy. This is just crazy talk. Here, let me show you what they're doing. Let me tell you what the designers did. They're using this little tiny one here to run two lamps, one on the A circuit and one on the B phase, A phase and B phase, right? They're using this sucker to run 4 lamps, 2 on the A phase and 2 on the B phase. That's just nuts. Like I was saying, they're using it to light up 2 lights at the same time. So they're still doing the same thing they were doing, but they've just made it where there's a whole other phase of lamps. So they've got the bulkier ones, the beefier ones, so that it can turn on 2 lights at the same time. So like I was saying, same player shoots again on the playfield, and then same player shoots again in the back box, light up both lights at the same time. You wouldn't use both phases for that because you wouldn't have to if they're always going to be on. On this particular game, up at the top of the playfield, it says something like 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 special, like on the left loop. And then on the right loop, it says the exact same thing. Those lights light up at the same time. So the two 10,000 ones are the same wiring, and one of these beefier ones is running both of those lights on phase A at the same time. And then it can still do phase B, 2 other lamps. So, very cool. Boy, they were just showing themselves by this point. Just trying to style on Williams, but Williams was coming up with the System 11, so they won out in the end. System 11 was awesome. Okay, so I'll check those and see which ones are bad and swap them out. Like I said, they're the same chips on the old ones, so I have the same SCRs on the old ones, so I've got a bunch of those. All right, so I'm going through and checking them with my multimeter. It's all these here. So each transistor, each SCR, you can test like a it really is a transistor. But you can check the 3 pins against each other. So what I'm doing is, here, I'll show you. Let me show you. If I don't knock the camera over. So like this one here. I've got it on diode test. And so between these 2 outside pins, look, it's an open line. Between the left and the right, it's 0.642. So if you go along and check another one just like that, you should get something similar. Whoop, see it? Okay. Now, let's say you find one that's shorted. Oh, what is that? That one tests shorted. Okay. So that particular one is Q42. Q42, according to my little notes, just happens to be the I think it's 5,000 point spinner transistor that does not work on mine. So if it's shorted, why isn't the light stuck on? It's because it's shorted the other way. It's like it's shorted. Basically, it's not grounded. It's shorted to the signal or whatever. So whenever the little if it was to short to ground inside this SCR, yeah, the light would stick on. But if it shorts the other way, basically what's happening is the chip that controls, that syncs at the ground, is now shorted to the bulb, which is the 12 volts, which isn't good, or 5 volts or whatever it's getting. So that's why we're getting that weird stuff too. Did you see how some of the lamps are coming on like halfway, and then they go back off, and so whenever it blinks they're like halfway off? It's because of that. It's shorted internally to the chip, so the logic chip is basically directly connected to the lamp because of the way the SCR shorted. So I went through and I found all the ones that are bad. There's a bunch of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 7 of them. 6 of them that are bad, and I'm gonna swap them out. Okay, folks, another hour has passed. So I replaced those 6, and then I noticed there were about 6 that had already been replaced by somebody. So they've had issues before. And then we got to take care of the battery. So like I said, this is the original battery. We're lucky it didn't leak all over the thing. And it is dead. Maybe that's why it didn't leak. So there's about 100 different ways you can fix this. Now on this particular one, that's a 6116. Man, I'll bet you could just put a NVRAM right in that sucker. But I don't know for sure that that's the NVRAM socket. I don't have any anyway. But it's socketed, so I'll bet on these. It's take that chip out, put another chip in. Okay? But we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So basically, you want to take the battery off the board and put it somewhere where if it does leak, it doesn't destroy the board. Okay? So one of the ways you can do that, and again, there's a bunch of different ways, is you can use a battery pack. So what I've done is I've taken a 4-cell battery holder, and then in one of the cells, the last cell, I've soldered a diode, a 1N4004. So basically, the reason you do that is so that when the board's on and it's got 5 volts running everywhere, that it doesn't try to charge your batteries. Now on this particular one, don't quote me on this, but on this particular one, just looking at it, I think this diode may actually block the voltage anyway, but I'm not positive. Let's see. No, I'm wrong. Well, I'm not sure if I'm wrong. I have to look at the schematics. It kind of looks to me like they've already got a diode there. Well, no, you know what? It would be going the wrong way, so that can't be blocking it. Okay, so yeah, we added the blocking diode. So it doesn't try to recharge it, but this isn't rechargeable. So it must have not been trying to recharge it. It's neither here nor there. So you put 3 batteries in, that gives you about 4.5 volts. It's supposed to, right? But usually they're a little high, so 3.2, probably about 4.8 volts, maybe a little more, even 4.9 volts, the 3 together. It only needs like 2 volts to hold it. Voltage runs through this diode, that drops it a little bit, so we've got like 4.6 volts on the board at test point 4. So that's replacing our 3.6. Now, you wouldn't want to hook 12 volts up to it, but, you know, if you're within 2 to 5, you're good. So this particular one that I've got has a little lid for it. So you put this on, and that sucker can roll around the back box without you having to worry about it getting messed up. It also has an on-off switch, which I don't really care for, but it'll be all right. Because what if that gets knocked off? Let's see how... it's pretty solid, so it won't easily get knocked off. Okay, so that's that. I went through so much trouble trying to find those. I've been trying to find ones made in the United States. Can't find them. So then, the other day, somebody bought on our channel some heat shrink. And I thought, you know, that's pretty cool. I could add that to our page for people to buy. Everybody needs heat shrink tubing, and I need some anyway. So I had a bunch already, you know. But I thought, let me go find some made in the USA heat shrink tubing. And I did find some, but I didn't find any. I didn't find any on Amazon that was like an assortment. So on our website, if you go to lionsarcade.com, we have a parts page at the top. And so I have been collecting links to things on Amazon that we use in our repair videos. Because people email all the time, where'd you get this, where'd you get that? Well, if you go on our parts page, lionsarcade.com, up the top it says parts, there's a bunch of links to stuff that we use whenever we do repairs. And lately, I hope this isn't controversial, but lately I've been trying to make it more themed towards made in the USA, or made in the UK, or made in Mexico, or made in Germany. I'm just trying to stay away from made in China, because I don't like the stuff made in China. Don't have no problem with the Chinese. I just don't like the crap they make. I often get crappy stuff from China, so I'm trying to get us away from that and support good old American made stuff. So I can't, but I'm using it with links on Amazon, right? So some of this stuff you just can't find anything made in the USA on Amazon, but a lot of it you can. So if you check out our website, you'll see that. Some of it is like the same price for the made in America stuff that it is in the made in hell stuff, right? But some of it is way out of whack, so I can't really expect anybody to spend that much money on it. So there's some crimpers, not these, but there's some crimpers that we use whenever we do repairs to connectors. The Chinese ones work pretty good, and they're like $12, $15, and they're pretty good. I like them. The made in America ones are $220. I ain't buying them. It's just too much, right? So sometimes it doesn't work. But when I can, I'm trying to wean myself off of the China. But I can't find those made in the United States. And I can't find heat shrink tubing, at least on Amazon, that's a good assortment made in the United States. If anybody sees a good assortment of USA made heat shrink tubing on Amazon, let me know. Or, and like I said, made in Germany, great. Made in Switzerland, great. Made in UK, great. Everywhere, great. Except for they who shall not be named, because I just, for various reasons. So some of this, we've got some stuff on there made in Japan. Growing up in the United States, if I hear something's made in Japan, that's good stuff. If I hear something's made in Germany, that's nice stuff. So it's not a exclusionary thing. All right, so I've got that on. We did the lamps. The solenoids we already tested in the solenoid test. You didn't see that, but I resoldered the connectors. And so I think we're going to put it back in and see if we can do some of the setup stuff now that we've got a battery that'll hold it. And we'll see if we can get all of the lights to work. All right, folks, we got most of the lights working. The Pinball there never lights up. So we got something with it. Everything else is doing its thing. The shoot again light doesn't light up in the track. Oh, and the no, that's good. I think everything's cool. I'm sure y'all will see more that if that isn't working. Rewind and watch slow, and you might have to watch 2 or 3 times to tell. Okay, so let me show you something you're going to love if you haven't messed with these. These things had the weirdest freaking test menu. So here's how the test menu works. There's a test button like on their previous machines. You hit that, and it throws you in a test. Now, if I hit it again, it doesn't do nothing. So you hit the button one time, and you're in test. Okay? And then, look at this. Let me see if I can get it loose enough that we can mess with it. I'm taking it loose. I'm trying to take it loose. Boy, this is the good footage here. Have you noticed I don't edit most of this out? I'm just leaving it in, folks. Deal with it. It'll be okay. All right, that's as good as it gets. All right, look at this bad boy. There is a keyboard inside of it. Now this tape, I think it's factory. That's been on every one of them I've ever had. Okay, so it's a little keyboard. And so basically you type in numbers and then hit enter and it goes to different settings. So for instance, if I were to type in 90, come on, there we go, and hit enter, that is our lamp test. Everything on the back box looks good. Everything on the play field. Oh, the 3 as well. The 3 and the 10. I thought the 3 was working earlier. So we might have a problem with the 3 and a 10. We got to figure that out. Okay. But that's basically how you do it. So this is the test menu does all of this. Okay. So if I type in another one, let me see. Let me find my screwed up settings. You've heard how the sound just keeps going beep, boop. Let me show you why. We talked about it already. Setting 50. So I think I got to hit clear. Okay. 50. Okay. So I'm in setting 50, and it is set on 01. I think that's actually correct. Yep. So it's set on the squawk and talk. We went through and changed some of these the other day, but you just saw that I pulled the battery off of it too. Once the battery dies, basically what happens is all of these settings, they get kind of weird numbers in them, and they're not always the suggested numbers. Okay. Okay, so we've got it set on the squawk and talk. It can also take the cheap squeak board, right? So we're going back out of that. All right, and then there is another one here. 47, the attract speech. It's set on 1. Yes, okay, cool. Free play. Let's put it on free play. So it's number 42. It's on 2 right now. 65 is free play. Any other number is coin operated. Okay, but we're going to put it on 65. And to change it, you just type it in and hit enter. And that's that. Okay. Sounds mode 27. 0 through 3. So let's find where they talk about the sounds mode. It says 28, but it's set on the other thing, 27. 4 options. 0, most switches associated chimes without feature background. 1, playfield switches associated chimes without background. 2, most scoring will have a noise effect without background. 3, most all scoring will have a noise effect with background. So they say there it's 28, and over here it says it's 27. Okay. I think this was the first Bally 6803 game, so this was the first time they did this, so they kind of had some stuff that they were messing with. So let's try 27. I think it's a typo. There's this little addendum. See if it says anything. Nope, it doesn't say anything. Okay, so it's set on 0. So we're going to try 3. Okay. Now we're at 28, which is German only. Okay. Don't need that. Let's try 27 again. 27 is set at 3. So basically that should give us our sound. Sometimes too, like if you get where the game will not start, one of these will be screwed up. So it'll be set for like it'll be something like A8 equals 1 credit. And there's no such thing as A8, so it doesn't know what to do. But since this is the earliest one, I don't know that it would do that. All right, so we've got the sound turned on, I believe. We turned up the we put it on free play, and we made it where it's got like all of the sounds and the background sounds. So if you hit game, it basically resets everything and sends it back out into a track. Or it should. What's up with that? Did I somehow go back into it? Game. There we go. Maybe I hit the wrong button. It's a little hokey. That keyboard thing, they get messed up a lot, and different people have made reproductions of that over the years, so you can get those if you have one that's messed up. So it should play some attract sound. We had that turned on. It'll tell me to shut up here in a second, if it's working. Come on. Come on. Tell us what you're going to tell us. Let me hit the lights. Maybe it'll talk to us as we're walking away. So we're supposed to be standing around chatting, you know. Hey, did you hear about Bob? Yeah, the guy was in a motorcycle wreck. Yeah, the guy was driving drunk again. You know how he's always doing. He's supposed to get a ride home, but no, he just has to ride that motorcycle. Yeah, I heard about that. Hey, did you hear about the new job I'm getting? Blah, 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 blah. All this nonsense talk, you know, people do at these bars and stuff. Come on. We don't have anything to talk about. Nobody's even here but me. I'm literally talking to myself. They're going to make me edit this, aren't they? Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Yak, yak, yak. Talk, talk, talk. Nothing. Boy, it looks good, though. What a beautiful game. I'll mess with those two lights here in a little bit. But I want to test out the squawk and talk. Come on, squawk and talk. Start squawking. Squawk for us, squawk and talk. We're all waiting. I can't stretch any longer, squawk and talk. You know, I'm the only person in the world working on this thing, and it won't help me a little bit. Come on now. Come on, 8-ball champ. Come on. Come on now. I've been trying to help you. Nobody's even messed with your battery since 1984, and then along comes me. And you won't even do the one little thing that I want you to do. What are you doing? You're making me have to do performance art here. What in the hell? I'm just trying to be a repairman. I shouldn't have to fill time just because you don't want to cooperate. So basically it has an attract mode when you're walking by. It wants to attract you to put a quarter in the machine so it can earn some money. So if it's just sitting there and nobody's doing anything, it will try to get your attention. All right, folks. So
talking and start talking.
Oh, come on. Come on, Joe. Did you tell it to say that? I told you not to teach the damn pinball machine. All right. So we got most of the lights going. Like I said, there's a few there that we got to work on the actual sockets, but that's kind of how the MPU works. And you heard it talk just a little bit there. On the next video, we'll play it, and we still got some stuff to mess with. We got to mess with the flippers. We got to test all the solenoids. A little bit more cosmetic stuff we have to do. We have to work on the soundboard. It's working, but it's got some potentiometers and stuff that need messed with. So make sure to leave your comments below. Let us know what you think so far. This is a pretty cool game, in my opinion. I think I'm going to like it. Pool themes and pinball, what can possibly go wrong? So make sure to give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film all this for you. We didn't have to do that, folks. We're doing it out of the kindness of our heart. We're so kind in our heart. And last but not least, don't forget to check out my brother Donnie. My brother has his own channel here on YouTube. We work on pinball machines, arcade games, jukeboxes, stuff like that. And Donnie works on old buildings, old vehicles. The other day he was messing around with a paper machine, a paper box, like a delivery box. A dehumidifier, and I'm usually over there with him on his channel having a good time. So I hope you enjoy those. Go check him out, my brother Donnie. The link is down below. And until next time, this is 8 Ball Champ.